If you are a boomer, call me Columbo. If you are a weeb, call me Conan. And if you are a hipster, call me Sherlock, because today we are investigating. We are investigating the mystery of the Dinars, also known as our free best-in-slot loot that we should be getting in this season. Why have we officially started the investigation? Well, we have officially started the investigation because just yesterday we had the official video about the incoming features of patch 11.1.5 coming in practically 10 days, so not this next reset, but the one after that is when the patch will launch, and some questions have started to rise about this patch. Some players have already started their groans and moans about the fact that there is a distinct lack of major balance tuning. Long are the days when the 0.5 or 0.7 patches were giving you massive spec and class reworks like we had in Dragonflight, for specs like rogues in the entirety of the class or paladins in the entirety of the class getting reworked between one major patch and the other. We don't really have that for this patch, but as players were done complaining about that, their focus went on something else. Because what we were told very early on before the release of this patch was that in the new feature of having a second faction in the patch, so not just a Renown faction for your new zone, the Undermine, but also a raid-specific Renown faction to give you some more goodies, some more quality of life and good stuff for your raid experience. There was also going to be the Dinar system attached to that Renown faction. The Dinar system was rolled out last expansion. It was tested season by season after season and greatly appreciated by the player base, and Blizzard attached it to the new Renown faction. So they said, okay, once you get to Renown 17 and then to Renown 19 is when you get your 2 charges of Dinar. There is going to be a vendor, and with that Dinar you can literally buy any item that drops from the raid that you want. And to give everyone the same chance, imagine players, for example, who don't raid in Mythic, not having access to the mid-track version of that item because they never killed the boss. We're gonna give those items you buy from the vendor 12 different upgrade levels, starting from 1 out of 12. So as long as you have your gilded crests to get into the highest levels of upgrades of that item, everyone, even players who don't even do mythic raiding, players who haven't even killed those bosses, everyone, as long as you could get your gilded crests, could have upgraded those items to 678 max item level. However, this was the explanation from Ion Azikostas, our dear lead game designer of WoW, as to why it was taken away and what was going to be the fate of this Dinar system.
I think we'll have a lot more details. There'll be it's going to be in the 11.1.5 update. Ultimately, the feedback we heard pretty clearly from players was that having it tied to particularly that late point in the Renown track felt, frustrating. There were also concerns about, how it would work, even though there is catch-up in place for the Renown track as a whole. Players coming back later in the season who then felt very far behind having to unlock this didn't feel like the right fit for Renown. So I think we want to just have it be something that when it unlocks for everybody, and we have more control over it as a universal system rather than every player having to progress towards it. We'll have more details with the next update, though.
Now, using the help of our skills in Paint, we have our 2025 roadmap over here. And as we know, Blizzard has committed to a 2-month cycle of patches. As you can see, the release of the expansion was on the 26th of August. And then 2 months later, roughly, we got 11.0.5. And then 2 months after that, we got 11.0.7. 2 months after 11.0.7, we got 11.1. And now we've just gotten the announcement of 11.1.5, which is, again, 2 months after the release of the patch. So obviously it's not too hard to guess. If this comes out on the 25th of February, and this one is gonna come out on the 22nd of April, 11.0.7 should be somewhere around the 20th something of June. So let's just say exactly the 20th of June. And then, because of course 11.2 will be scheduled to be something like the 18th of August. What did I just write? August. There you go. Now we know from our brand new raid only Renown faction that the Dinars were scheduled to come out on Renown 17 and Renown 19. And we also know that you can only get one Renown level per week in the raid. I believe now we are on Renown rank 7, right? After 6 weeks of the patch, you start at Renown 1 and then 6 weeks later you are at Renown 7. So, which means that to get to Renown 17 and 19, it would have been 10 more weeks, 10 and 12 more weeks. So 2.5 and 3 months after practically where we are now, which is the 15th of April, meaning the end of June. The 15th of June to the end of June. So basically we would have started to get our first and second dinar right over here. Which, you know, it does look kind of late as a kind of reward to the player base. However, this is what has started to somewhat worry a little bit the player base, because if the dinars were just pulled from these rewards because of the explanation from Ion that in 11.1.7 they would have been too late, after listening to player feedback coming on week 17 and week 19 of the season, it would have been too late, but at the same time, the details of patch 11.1.5 have just come out officially, and there is no sign of the dinars. The question now is, when are the dinars coming out? At this point, it seems like the only explanation to not make the player base unreasonably angry, angrier than usual, is just in an unofficial weekly hotfix addition. Hey, by the way, we just added the dinar in the game. Just go to your vault and the NPC right next to it, the one which you only know because you take the sockets from it pretty much every single time your vault is a disaster. Now he will also give you the dinar quest, and then next to it we will add the NPCs giving you all of the items you can get from the raid, without necessarily having to tie the addition to the dinar either to the 11.1.5 or to 11.1.7. Players have of course talked about on their takes on when they would want to see this dinar come live, you know, after how much of a patch would you want this, this wish granting item, because it practically gives you any item you want from the raid. This season, to be fair, it has probably gotten even more important because of the power of the trinkets from the raid. I mean, if you were to go to Blood Mallet and literally start picking random specs and start looking at their trinkets, 3 out of 4 of the trinkets for Ret all come from the raid. We pick some of the meta specs, like for example Fire Mage. You know, Fire Mage has 3 of the top 4 trinkets coming from the raid. What about Balanced Druid? Balanced Druid has 1, 2, 3 out of the top 5 of the trinkets coming from the raid. Devastation Evoker, 3, 4 of the top 6 trinkets all come from the raid, and it's pretty much, of course, the same ones every time. We're talking about House of Cards, we are talking about Mags, Moxie, Jag, we are talking about Eye of Tezan. These are the main ones, especially for casters. For melee DPS it can change a bit, but generally speaking, those trinkets are very powerful. Last season we also did have a few trinkets being quite good, but also a good option from Mythic Plus that you could find for many specs. This season it feels like the competition for powerful Mythic Plus trinkets is not nearly as good as last season. So that's why there has been a worry recently, because the 11.1.5 announcement has come out and there has been 0 mention of the dinar. And what makes it doubly worrying is because, of course, we had the words on paper, or rather on video, from the lead game designer himself, mentioning that we would have gotten the news of the dinar system in 11.1.5. So where is it? When is it coming out? Has it been scrapped completely? Have we just went back on our word and make it come out on 11.1.7, so on week like 17 of the patch, even though we said weeks ago that the reason why we pulled the Renown faction rewarding you with the dinars was because it was coming out too late. So making the dinars available in 11.1.7 would basically go back on that word of the dinar system coming out very late, because it will still be almost 4 months, over actually 4 months from the release of 11.1. So making it come out in 11.1.7 would be too late. Making it come out in 11.1.5 would be good, but the patch notes have just come out and there is no dinar system in 11.1.5, so now we are stuck in the middle, in purgatory, in this limbo between these two mid-season patches, with no knowledge, with no info about this Dinar system. That's where we are stuck with for today. Just you know, for now, we are still being proper. For now, a gentle reminder to Blizzard about the mention, any mention really, about any info regarding this Dinar system coming out. When is it coming out? From what is it coming out? What system is it going to be attached to? Or if it's going to be a standalone thing? How many of these dinars we are gonna get if you are still on the 2 dinars that were scheduled before the release of this patch? You know, any one of these infos. As I said, for now we are still being gentlemen and being proper and classy about it. I'm gonna give it a couple of weeks. You know, after that we can start pulling out our pitchforks. We can actually start slinging out insults and possibly even threats. But for now, we are just being nice about it. So, for today, on this Tuesday, on the eve of yet another weekly reset of patch 11.1, this was the argument of the day. Where have the dinars gone? So, with this out of the way, on this Tuesday, it is now time to leave each other. We are starting as usual the goodbyes by thanking everyone for having watched the video, together with, of course, everyone else who's been supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, no joke, it has been raining for like 3 days in a row. I don't actually mind it, I just found it peculiar.